Some here in person and some virtual, so welcome to you that are virtual. I've never done this hybrid model before, so I'm going to do my best. If you have questions, I have my colleague Blanca Morales, who is monitoring and taking care of the chat side of this presentation. So if you have a question, please don't hesitate to type it into the chat or ask to speak. If you would rather speak your question, just that would be fine as well. Also, I believe we have a few of our teachers, our junior high teachers. We have Charlotte Myers from Noel Barney with us tonight. So if you have specific questions for Noel Barney, she is here. And I believe we have Deanna Andrews. Is that correct? Is she on? And from Queen Creek Junior High. So
and
if
Elizabeth.
you have questions. And then Liz Murray is on standby from Eastmark High School. She's doing wrestling, I believe, right now, or one of the sports.
She just jumped on it.
She just came on. Awesome. Welcome, Liz.
No, she's on again.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us and being a support teachers for the parents as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are going to be discussing the shifts in math instruction. A lot of us that are older know
I
that.
am here, just so you know.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I'm multitasking. I'm here.
Okay, great, thanks. So some of the strategies that you're seeing that maybe your child is coming home with are a little bit different than what you remember in school. And so we're going to kind of discuss why that is, go through some of those strategies, and then I'm going to provide you some different supports that you can do at home with those. Do they see this?
I'm going to present right now.
Okay, awesome. So on the slide currently we have just our why, the strategic plan for Queen Creek Unified, and that is focused on student success. We want our students to be successful as they leave Queen Creek and head to whatever they have outside post-secondary. One of the whys that has stood out to me as a math educator is it says in the state of Arizona, nearly 60% of students that attend Arizona Community College require the remediation course. They don't pass that remediation course or need remediation courses. So that entrance exam they don't do real well with. So we're trying to support teachers and parents so that we can get those kids where they're not having to do that in community colleges. The objectives, we're going to focus on developing an understanding of the math instructional shifts. So I'm going to show those to you. Explore the pivotal math concepts in middle school so that your students, which are those that they need to get fluent on before they move into high school so that they can be successful with high school math, and then discuss strategies and resources that are available to you as parents. All right, of course, we're going to start with math. So I'd like you to take a look at this problem, read through it. It looks like the cursor is in the way. And then try to come up with what you would see as an answer, which is what we ask our students to do. So go ahead and read through that. They see it on the screen, yes. Correct? If you think you have an answer to it, go ahead and put it in the chat. If you feel a little anxious, go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Do you feel anxious here? All right, the point of this is not for you to really do it, okay? The point of it was to show old school. Anytime I saw, and I was a math major in college, I saw a word problem, I got anxious. And that's what our students tend to do. They get very anxious and they kind of shut down and try to reach for, how did my teacher show me to do it? What is that procedure that they showed me to do it? Instead of just problem solving and thinking and just using their common sense. So this problem is actually a third grade level math problem. Okay, now the reading isn't, but the math involved is third grade level. So it does not need to look like this, which is the way my brain goes automatically because I was so structured with procedures and I had to do it the way my teacher told me to. I didn't even think of the problem. I just thought of the procedure that I was taught. And so if I couldn't remember the procedure, I shut down and I didn't do the problem. And that's what our students do in the classroom. So it does not have to be this complicated. So I'm gonna, I don't know if you can see this whiteboard over here, but we're gonna go back to the problem and do it together. And I'm gonna show you what our students are doing in the classroom and they're thinking about it. And this is called a bar model. And so we teach our students, okay, we have in this problem, we have a bunch of cookies. We have no idea how many cookies, but we do have a lot of cookies. And so they would label this as their whole. This is my whole thing, and I don't know what it is, so I would put an X. All right, so it says last night here I took 1/6 of this. Well, if this is my whole, how could I represent 1/6? Well, students learn in elementary school that I can divide this into 6 equal pieces. And then he took 1/6 of that. So that would be Harry. And I'm going to label that with an H. And then along comes Neil, and he took 1/5 of the remaining cookies. Well, this is remaining, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal pieces. So he took 1/5 of those. So he took this. This then is Neil. And then the next person comes along, Luis, takes 1/4. Well, there's only 4 pieces left. So he must have taken this one, Luis. And then Zane comes in and takes 1/3 of what's left. And I think you're seeing what I'm doing here. We have 1/3 now, so he takes this one. That's Zane, so that's gone. And then just before dawn, Liam comes in and takes half of the remaining. Well, we only have 2 sections left, so that person takes half. And I don't know who that was, Liam. And it says that after all of that, there are 3 cookies left. And so that means there's 3 cookies left. So now the question asked was, how many cookies were originally in the bag? Can you tell me now how many cookies were originally in the bag? How many here, my person in person? 18, because we had 6 equal sections. So students in 3rd grade have that ability to do that problem. And so the whole purpose of today is helping you to understand that conceptual understanding is important, and the efficient methods to do them we get to as well. All right, so there have been a shift in our math instruction, and we still have focus. The content is not, we repeat the same standards as the previous grade level that first semester, okay? We used to do that. It was like we go to 1st grade, then we go to 2nd grade, we repeat part of 1st grade, and then we go into the 2nd grade. Now it's a grade level specific. So 6th grade has standards, 7th grade has standards that are totally different. They build on each other, that's where that coherence is. In 6th grade in a minute, you're gonna see 6th graders learn what integers are. In 7th grade, they actually do operations with those integers. And in 8th grade, we extend it to irrational numbers. So there is a coherence. The biggest shift though is that rigor. This circle used to be switched the other way. When you were in school, or at least when I was in school, the focus was on procedure and fluency. So you just learned how to do it and you just repeated it 50 times at night. Now, and then if we were lucky, we got to conceptual understanding and some application, some word problems. We flipped that. We're starting with the application, helping the students understand the context of what we're doing, building that conceptual understanding through different representations and models, and then leading to that procedural fluency. And that creates that balance. And then the last piece of the shift is helping foster these skills in our students. Notice the words that are highlighted. We have persevere, reason, construct, critique, model. So it isn't just regurgitating what the teacher does and us following that procedure. It's really trying to get our students to be problem solvers, which in today's society we need because we have computers that can do the computational piece of it. What I'm going to kind of focus on, because I think this first one is where you as parents can really help support us as the educators. And that's with that productive struggle. your students are going to struggle, but let them know that that's okay. That's part of the process, and that they may not know it right now, but they will know it. And so they don't know it yet, but they are. So that's like a growth mindset, and we'll be talking about that later. But that's where I think you guys can really help us out. And so I'm going to go through the concepts that are really critical in middle school that they need to have fluent and be able to do when they go to high school. And I'm going to show you some strategies for the next part of the session. But as I'm doing that, think about how you can support your child with that productive struggle. All right, any questions so far before I move into some of the strategies?
Any questions from our online parents? Okay, looks like we're good to go, Liz.
All right, first topic is integers. My teachers online can definitely affirm this, that integers our students need to know. They do introduce them in 6th grade. That's just, what is it? Why do we need them? Why do we have -5 degrees? Okay, what is the purpose of those integers? But 7th and 8th grade, 7th specifically, is where they learn to add and subtract those integers. So I'm going to model that for you today. There are some chips, integer chips. I don't know if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah. Move to camera. Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to hold them up. I'm not going to use them for today, just for purposes, but they are red and yellow. Your students don't necessarily need this, but if you have a tactile child that really likes to move and want manipulatives, then I would suggest getting some of these or creating them, making them, okay? If you're here, you'd be able to play with them a little bit, so my person here can do that. I'm going to use just plus or minuses up on the board, okay? With the chips, the yellow side is your positive, the red side is your negative, okay? So if you're using the chips. So I'm going to model a few problems over on the board. The key piece for integers, and not computing integers, is a zero pair and understanding what a zero pair is. So a zero pair is a +1 and a -1. They go together to give you 0. And then that subtraction means add the opposite. So I'm going to start really simple with something they learn in elementary school, okay? 3 minus 2. We don't have kids having problems with this. And so modeling it with the chips, you would either do, this is 3 positives or 3 yellow chips. And we're going to take away 2. So if I take away 2, and I'm going to take these and get rid of them, then that leaves 1 left. Or I can model it, I have 3, and subtraction means add the opposite. So I'm going to add 2 negatives. And here is a 0 pair, so that is 0. And here's a 0 pair, that's 0, so I have 1 left. So by doing this, the children that need to see more concrete are able to visualize that computation. And so that's just a simple model. So I'm going to do some with some integers in there. So if we have -3 plus 2, again, -3, so the student would have 3 red chips, or put 3 negatives. And I'm adding 2, so I have 2 positives. And notice how I'm putting it kind of underneath each other to create those 0 pairs. That's 0, and a negative and a positive is a 0. So my answer to this one is that -1. So now the students in their brain are starting to see, and as they do more of these, making the model, they're going to start seeing, oh, they can visualize the 0 pairs in their head and see what's left over. All right, so I'll do one more that kind of trips up our students. And so we have a -3 minus a -2. So I have 3 negatives, and I can think of this as taking away 2 negatives. So if I take 2 negatives away, then I have negative 1 left. That's one way to think of it. Or if you have the 3 negatives and you use subtraction means add the opposite, I'm going to add the opposite. So I'm going to add to this 2 positives because the opposite of negative 2 is positive. And now I create my 0 pairs and I have negative 1 left. So if your child is struggling, I do strongly suggest utilizing, having them write the positives down and watch them, just to help them to do that. And after a while doing that enough, obviously we don't want them, if it's negative 25 minus negative 15, we don't want them writing all of those out. But their brains will make a connection from the visual model to the efficient computation after you do it enough times. Okay, any questions on the integers? Have you seen this come home? Any of these, like your child making positives and negatives? Okay, all right, so we're gonna move on. So that's the big, that one needs to be fluent. If you're not fluent with that, that's gonna unfortunately impact the rest of their 7th, 8th, and all the way up. So get those students fluent on those. How are we on time?
We're 17 minutes in, so
Good.
we've got plenty of time.
All right, so another word problem. So go ahead and try this one using that bar model. See if you can think about that as you're using this. So this one says, after his party, Caden had a quarter of his cake left. His dog ate 2/3 of what was left. How much of the whole cake did his dog eat? And there he is eating the cake. It does say write an expression. I'm moving into the next hot topic. It's algebraic thinking. So expression that would illustrate this situation. Did I raise the board? So I am going to start with the cake. Start with your cake and see if you can figure that out. If you think you have it, put it in, except for my teachers, no cheating teachers, go ahead and put that answer in the chat. All right, we ready? Anybody have an answer out there in virtual land?
Any brave answers in the chat for us?
You only had one practice, and that's another thing I'm getting to towards the end. You haven't had a lot of practice in this, so am I expecting you to know it really right off the bat? No. Would I provide time in class that we do in class for the students to think? If I just said, okay, try it, and then a second later I said, okay, here's how you do it, we're not providing that for that productive struggle. So you do want your student at home, if they say, hey, Mom, I don't understand this problem, I just can't do it, talk positive to them. Say, hey, that's okay, you don't understand it yet. Let's look at it together. Let's look at our notes. Our teachers provide excellent notes. The students take wonderful notes in class, or should be. Have them process those, look at those, and let them try to struggle through. Even if you know how to do it, still try to let them struggle through it a little bit, okay, and guide them. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do this one. So we have after his party, Caden, and I'm going to utilize the audience member I have here. And what is your first name again? Maria? Okay, Maria. So she drew her cake like this because she likes that kind of cake. I had a rectangular cake, she had a square cake. And then she divided it into 4 pieces, which is excellent. And she said, this is how much of the cake that was left. And then she did this and said, well, the dog ate 2 of those. So she's right on. I would go around the classroom and look, oh, this student is understanding it. Just because they didn't do it the way I was going to do it, doesn't mean that their thinking is incorrect. So again, fostering that in the child. And so then the question was, well, how much of that, of the whole, are those two pieces? The whole is X, I don't know what it is, right? But it's 2 out of how many if I divided this into equal pieces? There would be 12. So it's 2 out of the 12. And so it'd be 1/6 X. So again, utilizing a visual might help your child at home. Have them draw a picture. Algebraically, just looking at this, they will start getting, it's 1/4 of some unknown, which is where we use a variable. That's an algebraic expression. And then that is what's left. The dog ate 2/3 of that. And so now we're going to multiply by 2/3. And so then the student would still get 2/12. If your student is an abstract thinker, they will understand this and do that. Okay, but this is where, this is called an algebraic expression because it has a variable in it. All right, so the next topic are expressions, equations, and inequality. Notice there is a lot. This is a huge piece of their 7th and 8th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th actually. 6th grade lays the foundation of what a variable is, and that is algebra when we have variables, unknowns. And then they start solving equations in 6th grade. 7th grade, they solve equations that are a little bit more difficult, but also have those integers in that we just did. You think that causes a problem? If they don't know their integers, they're not going to then be able to combine like terms and solve equations. So these are concepts. So algebraic, evaluating equivalent expressions, recognizing if 2 expressions are equivalent, and then 1-step, 2-step, and multi-step solving equations. This is critical. If they cannot do this before they hit algebra, before they hit middle school or high school, they will have a hard time in high school. Okay, so any support we can give right now where we're laying the foundation is crucial. So I think I'm going to try to model some of this with algebra tiles. I know those of you at home do not have these, so I'm going to use a dot camera to kind of illustrate it for a little bit, and then you have some here, so feel free to make those. I'm only going to do 2 equations. Whoops, not those yet. I'm going to do expressions first. So let me see if I can get this under the dot camera. Can they see that? Good at home?
Everybody see that okay?
Can I? Try to get out of the way. Can I see it?
You should
Okay.
be good.
So we're going to use some algebra tiles. These tiles are, again, if your child is tactile, they will like these. A little harder to draw than the plus and minus. But the rectangular ones represent an X. Okay? The little one, and the green side is positive, red side is negative. So they have 2 sides to them. I have put as resources a template that you can create your own at home of these if you would like. And there's also a virtual site, a site online that have virtual ones. They can do it on a computer. All right, so we have 2 X's, and those are positive. Then these little squares represent 1. And since it's a -3, that's add the opposite, or just think of it as -3. I put it on the red side, so that's -3. Then it says -4, so that would be red X's, and we need 4 of them. And then we have a +2, so that is those little yellow squares. All right, the good thing about this is students can move these around now. Okay, they see what matches and what doesn't match. And that's the biggest problem. Our students like to combine all those together like they're one thing, and they're not. That X does represent some number. So here they can say, oh, all of these rectangles should go together and all these squares should go together. And now we have our zero pair concept come into play. So we have a positive and a negative, a positive and a negative. Those are called zero pairs. You would take those off because that is zero. You would do the same thing with the little squares. You pair them up. We have a negative and a positive is zero. Negative and positive is a zero pair. So we have one left. So after doing that, students would then be able to write their answer. They're red, so it's negative 2 x's and a negative 1. And so that then is their simplified answer for that problem. All right. I'm going to do model one more of those, and then we'll do some equations. So we have negative 3x squared minus x plus 2x squared plus 2 minus 3x plus 4. Oh my goodness. Some strategies that teachers use are color coding, so they would color the squared terms all one color, the x terms all one color, and the constants one color. And some students are successful with that. They don't need the tactile. But I'm going to show you the manipulative. So go ahead, you that are here. But at home, try to think about what you would write down for this, or see if you can visualize and come up with that answer. What would this be if you combined your like terms? And I'm going to put the model up here while you think about it. Oops. The squared are actually squares. Forgot I had that. And then we have one negative x. And we have 2 positive squares. So I'm just going to add those over with the other squares. It doesn't matter where we put them. Plus 2 little squares. And then we have negative 3 x's. And we have 4 positive 1. That was a lengthy one to do under the dot camera. And so once the students do this, they work in pairs. They then take their positive and negatives, their zero pair, take that away. They have a zero pair here. They remove those. They have 1x squared left. All of the negatives are red. All of the x's are red, so we don't have any zero pairs. And all of the others are yellow. And so they would write that as an algebraic expression, x squared. They can put the 1 in front if they want. Negative 4 x's and a positive 6. Yellows are positive. We have positive 2 and positive 4. Yeah. Oh, yep. It is negative. Thank you. Ha! Good job, student.
Woohoo!
Okay? All right, so that was very quick and fast, but I did want to kind of model that for you. There are other strategies that are used for combining like terms. Like I said, combining the highlighting in different colors. Some do a circle around certain ones, but the tiles help those students that are really struggling and aren't able to see that abstractly. All right. I think next is the equations, if I remember correctly. So let me go ahead and go to that first. Anybody virtual have any questions?
I just wanted to confirm that the concept you just went over was for 6th grade to know going into 7th, right? Because I see my daughter doing that.
6th graders will do that concept with only positive numbers because they have not done integers yet. Notice in that example was 7th grade standard because I was working with both positive and negative values. And so so 6th grade would just be positive, but they would still be combining like terms. That concept is, yes, definitely introduced in 6th grade. Seventh
Okay.
grade moves that same concept with integers involved, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's look at some equations. So that's the next concept, is solving equation. And I am going to start with seventh grade concept, which would be, whoops, and I'm going to use a map. We do have these. Oh, it's going to be a glare, so I will keep it on. All right, so we're going to solve the equation, which is 2x minus 3 equals -1. Can they see that? Can you see that? Can you see it?
Is that clear for you guys?
Can they see it?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we have 2 x's, and again, those are positive, so we have those on the right-hand side of the equal, and we have 3 negatives. So that's how you would show that. I'm going to write the equation down below so you can see it. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to do some math next to it. And then we have -1 on this side. All right, in class when we show this, we model this. We do both at the same time. So we're going to do the modeling with the algebra tiles, but I'm also going to do the algebra on the equation. So what we can do is we can add, this is a balance, and so we can add the same thing or take away the same thing from both sides. So what we teach our students is we first want to solve for x. So these are our x's, the green ones. So we want to leave those alone. But we want to remove these 3 negatives. In order to do that, I have to create a 0 pair. So I need a positive for every negative that I have. So what I did is I added 3. In class, you may see your students putting a line down the equal sign. Some teachers use that strategy. And so if I did that to the right or the left-hand side, we have to do that same thing. And so they would add 3 tiles on the right. And then this is that 0 pair. So all these are pair up, and so they are removed. And then over here, we have a negative and a positive 3. Again, working with integers, students will miss that. They'll put -4 or 4, and then the whole problem's wrong. So getting them fluent in those integer operations is critical. But if they're using the algebra tiles, they can take the 0 pair away, and they see that they have 2 tiles left. So that would be 2, and they bring down the 2x. So they're doing the algebra to the right with the tiles. And then now I want to know how many 2x's are. I want to know what is one of the x's. And so we tell them, well, split up and divvy up the other tiles. And so now I have 1x equals 1. So what I did is I divided that into 2 equal pieces, and so we divide both sides then into 2. And you get x equals 1. Oops. And again, that's very quick, hard to do virtually. I'd rather be up and helping you. But Arthur, I did want to let you see that there is a strategy out there. There are several videos online that you can do. Or your child can watch to support them if that's a strategy they need to utilize. All right, any questions on the algebra tiles? I know it was quick and furious. How about the teachers out there? Do you have any other tidbits to provide to the parents before we move into the next concept?
So we did have, Deanna said if they are 6th grade honor students, they may be introduced into integers. That probably was from earlier in the comments, but that's all I've got so far. Any of the math teachers want to add in?
I just agree with everything Ms. Ridout has said, that the emphasis on the integers. I teach 7th grade honors and I also teach 8th grade pre-algebra. And I have my pre-algebra kiddos working on solving systems of equations, and they can do a whole bunch of complicated steps, and then they miss the problems because they make integer errors. So yeah, that's one of the biggest, most important things ever. So
All right, thank you, Charlotte, for that. Yeah, we do see, I see it all the way up to high school. So the more we can get them fluent, but understanding, not just rules, but understanding why they are, will stay with them. Also, thank you, Deanna, for mentioning the honors. I forgot about our honors. 6th grade does teach part of the 7th grade standards, and part of those standards is the operations with integers. So if your child, the person that asked that question, if your child is in honors, yes, they would be exposed to that. Okay, and so that's basically our expressions, equations. I'm not going to hit on the inequalities, but those all kind of relate together. I just wanted to show you the algebra tiles because I figured you might not see those, and that's a tactile thing for your students. So we already did the solving. I kind of did want to show you this, and I don't know why this thing is here. Oh, I can move it. Good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you this using bar models. Bar models are also very helpful, as you've seen already. I've used them a few times already. But we're going to go ahead and do this word problem. With word problems, a lot of times the bar models really help our students. And so we break down the problem. We have Marissa, who is has twice as much money as Frank. We try to do 3 reads. If your child is at home and is asking about a word problem and they're not understanding, first ask them to read it, and then tell you just in their own words, what is it about? What is the problem about? So if we read this, Marissa has twice as much money as Frank. Christina has $20 more than Marissa. If Christina has 100, how much money does Frank have? So your child might say, well, they're talking about money, Mom. I don't know, how much money people have. That's perfectly acceptable. That's what we want. So they know at least what it's about. Then say, okay, now I want you to read it again, but this time I want you to focus on what they're asking you to find. So we read it again, and Marissa has twice as much money as Frank. Christina has 20 more than Marissa. If Christina has $100, how much money does Frank have? Oh, they're asking me how much money Frank has. So in math, we don't know how much money Frank has, and so that would then be our variable, amount of money Frank has. And so they might write that down, or they might do a visual because their mind is still not to the abstract. This is abstract. They might say, well, Frank has this much money. Okay, that's all I know. I don't know how much he has, but that's what I'm supposed to find out, how much that is. Okay, so now we go back and I said, okay, now read it a 3rd time and see what information they've given you that we might be able to use. So it says Marissa has twice as much money as Frank. Oh, so Frank has this much. Then Marissa must have this much. 2 of those. 2 of Frank's. Okay. Christina has $20 more than Marissa. Well, I now know how much Marissa has. It's right here. So what's her name? Christina. So I would draw that bar, right? And then, I don't know, I'm just going to put $20 here because I know it's $20 more. And then it says if Christina has 100, oh, so Christina has 100, how much money does Frank have? Well, now I know this amount right here is 100. Do you think your child would be able to figure out what that is in that box? We're trying to figure out this. This is our question. Just from this model, do you think your child would be able to figure this out? And so most students would say, oh, I just take the 20 away, that's 80. Oh, it's 2 pieces, so that would have to be 40. So now I know this is 40, which means this is 40, which means this is 40, which means this is 40. Oh, Frank has $40. So bar models really help in a lot of situations, especially to build that concrete understanding of the abstract. Then you would move to the abstract. Okay. All right. How's our time going?
We've got 20 minutes left.
Awesome. Okay. That was kind of the end of modeling. I'm going to show you some. So that's the end of the modeling piece, which I knew would take the longer bit of the time. But this is the last main concept that your children really need to have a good grasp of before they move on to high school. Okay. So it is ratios, proportions, and linear equations. It's starts to introduced in 6th grade, understanding and applying the concepts of a ratio and unit rates. Unit rates tied to slope, so we're going into that, and slope is a key algebra piece that students have a difficult time with. In 6th and 7th grade, they explore relationships and they talk about independent and dependent variables. That's our graphs. They need a strong understanding of what one's independent, what one's dependent. Calculating unit rates, you could do that in a store, grocery store. You could go and a lot of times it already shows you the unit rate on the sticker there. But that's something you can explore with your child. If it's $3 for $1, what's the unit rate? How much is it? How much is one? And then recognizing proportional relationships. But the key one I wanted to talk to is this last one here for 8th graders. If you have an 8th grader, you really want to have them practicing graphing a linear equation and that rate of change in initial value. That's going to help support them as they move to Algebra 1 the following year. So 8th grade is laying a foundation for algebra. It's basically doing all the skill work so that when they go to Algebra 1 now is more application. So your child will be doing a lot of application in high school. And so just some of the bar models still help with that ratio reasoning. So that comes in, we have a ratio of 3 to 2. So you can see the 3 to 2 there easily. And if they need to make 90 cups, well, now it's split into 5 equal pieces. They divide that 90 into 5. Here we have a table. They're taking that table, or actually they're comparing here. 2 cars are traveling from point A to point B. Their speeds are represented in the graph on the table. So this is one speed, this is the other speed. So can your child look at this and figure out how fast the car is going? Well, this is a unit rate, so he's going 59 whatever miles or whatever it is, miles per hour. Over here, for 1 hour, they are going 55 miles per hour. So just being able to read a graph. So I know that was quick, but that also is that last one. So those are our main topics as you go through middle school math. So those are they do other things, but those are the main ones that I would say to really concentrate on and support your child. We're going to go over some resources or give you links to those that can help support with that practice and getting those skills fluent. All right, so how can you best support the student at home? Okay, helping them with some of these strategies. That productive struggle is something that is, I think is just critical. I'm old school. I learned math way back in the day, and it was, I just did what the teacher did. Luckily, I'm a very abstract learner. That was fine for me. I did great, but I had several friends that didn't. I taught for 18 years in high school. I had students that really struggled, and I wish I had known some of these strategies when I was in the classroom, and I did not. So I just strongly encourage you to, even though it looks foreign to you, to embrace it and let them come up with that conceptual. I'm in the classrooms, I get lucky, I'm lucky I can go around and look at the classrooms and see what the teachers are doing. And I see the talking. The kids are actually talking mathematics, whereas 10, 15 years ago, it was silent. The kids were just writing down everything that the teacher put. So they are thinking, we want them thinking, we want them doing that problem solving. So foster productive struggle, kind of like teaching them to ride the bike, right? You don't want to get on the bike and show them you can ride it. That doesn't help that child at all. So you taking the pen and showing them how to do the problem really doesn't help the child. Even if you're telling them what procedures to do, that doesn't help the child. Providing training wheels, that's kind of a false sense of success. The child thinks, oh, great, I can ride this bike. I'm doing really good. But they have training wheels on it. That's what we do when we just give them procedures. Some children, myself included, can follow procedures and I can get that answer right. But if you ask me why I did that or why that was the way it was, I wasn't able to explain that to you. We want our students to be able to explain and be problem solvers. So we really want them here. Well, we give them this balance. I guess they have these balance bikes now where the kid kind of gets a little bit of feedback. So it's struggle is medium, feedback is high. They get a lot of feedback because they kind of are trying. And the reason the reward is medium is because they don't have this false sense anymore. So they've had to struggle through it. They've had to earn it. It wasn't this immediate. Whereas over here, you see the reward is high, but it's a false high. Yeah, they're riding the bike, but they have these training wheels, okay? So the more we can get our students, not unproductive struggle. If they just are crying or whatever, just take away, stop, that's okay. You need a break, go, take a break. Practice, practice, practice. I have seen this I've been in education for 27 years, and this is what I've seen go down. My day was like 50 problems a night. That's not what I think is good either, because you practice something that's wrong. But we do need our students practicing in mathematics. We wouldn't ask our child if he's a football player to just go play in the game and never attend practice. We wouldn't have our cheerleaders, go do their cheer meet. We wouldn't have our band kids, go to do a concert without practicing. The same is true with math. We have to practice it, otherwise it doesn't become fluent for the student. So those integers, they need to practice and practice and practice, and all of a sudden the light bulb's going to go off. They're going to be able to do negative 50 minus 23 in their head. Okay, they're going to see, oh, negative 50, negative 23, I'm moving all the way this way, so I'm adding those together, and the answer's going to be negative. Perseverance, that productive struggle I've already kind of talked with you about. Fostering the growth mindset, you don't know it yet, okay, honey, but you will. Keep on persevering. Write down. I strongly encourage your child, when they're home practicing, if they come up with a problem that they don't understand, we do have the online product, and so if they're doing their online, there's help menus that they can access, but if they still don't understand it, have them take a picture of it or write the problem down. Take it into class the next day and ask the teacher to explain that, because the teacher will. They want to help the student. And so, or have them look back at their notes and process the notes. What notes did you take today, honey? Go back and look at those. Highlight anything that you still don't understand, and then go in the next day and ask your teacher to explain that. That's taking that ownership, because it's okay not to know. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're learning. And so really help your student to understand that it's okay if they don't know it right away. Also, try not to say that you weren't good in math, because that's putting that into their head. And so be really careful with that. Just say, I understand your struggle, honey, but I have confidence in you, and you're gonna get this. And that positive reinforcement, praise them for anything that they are doing, just for sitting there and trying. It's good. Have you seen your child do video games or any type of games or things like that? I thought this was very interesting, so I added it to the slide. Students fail when they play games. Why don't they give up? Because they expect to fail. That's an expectation. Unfortunately, when they're learning something, they have all this pressure. They think they have to do it right the first time. That's okay to fail. That's how we learn. Kids persevere. If you've ever had a child, and I have a daughter who will play video games, and you'll just keep playing because they're getting feedback, they're getting that constant feedback, and they're getting better and better and better and better because they're practicing. They're doing it over and over and over again. So if your child is a game player, relate that to them. Say, hey, honey, you get really good with those video games. It's because you're practicing a lot. But they're getting positive reinforcement too. They're getting some positive feedback. Or if they're playing band or whatever extracurricular activity that they do. And then I do have a plethora of websites that Blanca is going to post, and I put links so that you can just click on them and see what you like and what will work for your child, since I don't know your child, but there are several things out there. One of our, the product that we use as a resource for the district is Envisions. It does have it has videos in there that the child can watch on the lesson. When a child is doing a problem, it will actually work another problem just like it, or to work that exact problem, and your student can write those notes down. When they're doing their online homework, strongly encourage you to have them do a homework journal where they are writing. If the teacher is not requiring it, I would tell them, write those problems down, put their work, show their work, so that teachers can, if they do have a question, teachers can support them and help them. If they're just doing it in their head mentally, that's very hard to do. And so probably they're just clicking and trying to get the right answer. We don't want that, okay? So we want them actually showing where they don't understand, circle it, bring it into class. And then the last slide is just an inspirational quote on the growth mindset. Carol Dweck is the growth mindset, written some books on that and just really helping our children know. So if parents want to give their children a gift, the best thing they can do is to teach your children to love challenges. Be intrigued by mistakes. We want mistakes, that's how we learn. Enjoy effort and keep on learning. That way their children don't have to be slaves of praise. They will have a lifelong way to build their own confidence. So with that, I want to open it up to, if you have any questions. What time are we at?
It's 5:52,
Ooh,
so just in time for questions.
okay. So anything else that I can support you with? The teachers can support. They're online so if you have specific questions for the teachers, are there any?
Feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions. Nothing from Wendy. Thank you, Wendy. Okay.
And then there is a survey, right?
Yes.
That you can go online and fill out for us so that we can get some feedback. Obviously, we want to continue to support our parents and any way that we can help to support those students. I appreciate you guys joining online, and this was my first time doing a virtual, so hopefully it was beneficial. You got some things that you can help support your child, but please reach out to me if you need anything else. I appreciate you guys attending. Thank you. And thank you to the teachers. I appreciate you guys taking the time to attend the call as well.
Thank you, teachers.
Good.
Okay, I think so.
All right. Thank you. That was helpful.
Yeah,
It
it
just
was
some idea.
because I was abstract, you know,
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't explain her to simplify it, so she will never get it.
Yeah, that's like that. And there's if you just Google it, our model, there's so many YouTube videos that will help her too.
I didn't understand the concept. But now I get it. It's very clear. It's super easy. I mean, makes it much easier. Yeah, I was you know, if you're adding, you have to go the other way, it's distracting. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
And you memorize it, the way, like you say,
Yes.
memorize the procedure,
Uh-huh.
because that's the way.
That's what they told me.
I don't know why.